is the one-on-one Paul Phillips welcoming you to Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, there seems to be me and Jeff, and of course, Dave's around. Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing this lovely night?
I'm staying warm.
That's good. And assuming the travails on the
Weather's being good.
Yeah, the weather's been good. That's always good to hear. I know it wasn't so great in like Colorado like last week.
No.
Well, for you it wasn't bad. For Colorado it was. I was getting something shipped from Colorado. I got a teardrop, and it's shipped from Colorado. And of course we've had the big Arctic bomb occur, and then.
Oh yeah.
So the original pickup date was like before Christmas, and that went down the tubes real fast with the Arctic bomb coming in. So it didn't get picked up until like a week later. So.
I got a buddy right now stuck on Donner Pass on Interstate 80 in California. He says they got 16, 18 inches in a couple of hours.
Yeah, rain. Right?
Well, it's rain down in the valley, but on Donner it's snow.
Oh, okay, so it's high, that high up. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, he's stuck above the snow line.
Damn. Yeah, I saw the rivers that were coming towards California. It's like, oh, this doesn't look good.
I need the water, just not all at once.
Yeah, I think I'll stick it here on the East Coast. No. Oy. But anyhow, good to hear that you're good and safe.
Yep.
But anyhow, given that it's just you and me, okay. I might as well start off with what I was actually been doing for like not this past week, but the week before this past week. I did a lot of work on it. Actually, I planned on doing one thing, and that I got sidetracked, and I focused on another little project of mine, which is with the client, because currently I have to maybe I'm a day later $1 short in this, but I know there's still some issues here and there with it, which is a lot of antivirus. Some ISPs, they don't like it when you use IRC for your protocol. You know, when you connect using it to an IRC server, they automatically think it's a command and control server for some botnet or something along those lines.
It's got a very bad reputation among the IT set.
Yep. So one thing I've been working on is basically creating my own custom game server, which is HTTP based.
Okay.
Now, obviously, we drop some of the IRC functionality, that people have been using. But what I'll probably do is I'll add the minimal, and then as people want additional features, they say, oh, we really need to have this back, I'll start re-adding those features back in. And so I've been working on that. I've actually implemented more things on the server side as I was doing the client side stuff, because on I did all the client stuff. Did like a library to connect to the HTTP server, and actually it's going quite well in my mind. Some of the code I'm just copying from the custom IRC implementation that I had, and that should work fine. That's always the tough part about this stuff. is that something that I haven't worked on. Let me think. It's been probably around 10 years since I worked on this part of the client. So,
then you're about due.
Yeah, yeah. And so I have to relearn everything that I knew about that part of the client all over again.
I know the pains of digging into legacy code and scratching your head. Go, what was I thinking 10 years ago?
Yeah. Well, I haven't gotten to that point where it's like, where I go look going, what the heck? Why did I do? What the heck did that for? I haven't got to that point. Because lot of
last time I dug into legacy code that I myself wrote, so it's self-owned here.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at this one line of code and I was seeing hieroglyphics and I'm scratching my head going, what even is this?
It's probably those modern tricks that you found.
Turns out I was using a depreciated MySQL call that doesn't work that way anymore, which is why I was getting errors on my test bed, because it was running modern software and the production server was still running the old stuff.
You don't mean depreciated, you mean deprecated.
That was a chase down the
understood.
The rabbit hole.
Yeah, oh yeah. You mean deprecated.
Yes.
Yeah. When you said that, I know what you meant, because I know that term quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, unless you're a programmer geek, this is probably not all that interesting.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, the one thing actually I use an IDE, and there's some classes of old Java that say this is deprecated. Well, I have to use it because of their old UI system, which is Swing. That's what it uses. So I have no choice. Got a better idea? Because all
the joys of legacy code.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one thing. Crazy thing about Java. I know most people don't know about Java, but the one thing that Oracle's been doing with Java is been in the more later and later versions of Java, they've basically are dropping off the desktop support, completely dropping it off, and pushing it off to is open sourcing it and going, here guys, you can do whatever you want with it, but we're no longer going to be supporting an actual desktop version of of Java. We're going to be focusing completely on server. It's like, okay, that's the way you want to go. That's fine. Yeah,
it makes their support licensing easier, is what it amounts to.
Yeah. No, stop the word support. And you got it.
How about we just put alleged support?
No, Oracle does support it. It's just, you have the money?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, that is the one thing that just bugs the. That's why I think there's a lot of people still using JDK 8, which is really old by this time, and that's because of the change in licensing. Because if you use the JDK 11 that is built by Oracle themselves, you have to, if you use it for production, for a commercial product, you have to pay a licensing fee. So if I actually use JDK 11, that's what was available from Oracle themselves, I would actually have to pay a licensing fee for each copy of the client that I give away.
It'd get expensive.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing. That's why for the Windows version, I actually use an open source version of the JDK called Adopt JDK. Adopt JDK is what it is. It's open source. And actually, I had to do that. That was the crazy thing. I had to do that for my Mac, my M1 Mac. As I actually as strange as it might sound, grab an open source version of the JK11 from Microsoft.
Yeah.
So that was kind of crazy. But anyhow, now that we've done talking about programming and the people are completely bored, I probably lost already half the people here. Get back to actually what this podcast is about. That's the Starfleet universe. Not much happening. Big surprise, because of last week, everyone was shut down, including the ADB. They were shut down. They reopened, a couple days ago. Well, oh crap!
I saw on the board earlier where Steve Cole's been working on the FC gunboats. Apparently,
Yep.
he's making serious progress on it.
Oh yeah. That's the one thing that they did announce, and I put that as part of the news last week, which is they're working on the gunboats, and that is going to be the next FedCom product, which is good to hear. And it should be interesting to see. Actually, that's one thing I did do for. I know you did, and I did too, which is for the Captain's Log Double Nickel, which was the battle groups. Put in our tactics. Hadn't heard anything back about that.
You probably won't for probably a little while yet. If I look at the time scale on previous Captain's Log, they'll probably hit it good in a little bit, and then we'll probably get proof copy to look over before they go to press with it.
Yeah, well, definitely. That's one thing I'm going to have to do also, which is normally I also produce at least two articles for Captain's Log. One is for SFU Online. The other one is for the Starfleet Warlord. So I'm going to have to gather up the pieces for that. For Starfleet Warlord, the one thing I have to pick up the pieces for is who are the winners since the last Captain's Log, and I have to look at that. Well, I don't
research.
Yeah, I got look this. I have to on my computer find out, look at my last Captain's Log article, and find out, okay, when was that published, and what was the last game that I spit out about?
We used to refer to that as administrivia.
True, but it's good to. Obviously, I think most people would like to have the X ships, but for the next FedCom module. But gunboats, I'll take them as long as it's not the fighters, because to me,
X ships are kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of people want the toys, but they don't want to fight the toys. They want to be in the X ship and have everybody else in General War era tech. And the problem is that it inspires the wrong kind of competition among battle groups. I've heard other people talk about the fact that if you don't do X tech just right, all it becomes is just an arms race, like several other game engines have had issues with when they've added new and improved ways to smash and destroy.
Oh yeah, agreed. The second generation X ships, the first time they put out that module, that was a total. Yeah, that was so bad, So I'm glad that they're taking a more measured approach on the second time around. I'm hoping they'll get around to doing the second generation X ships again. I would love to see the Zerkalians. Not to put a downer on this thing, on the discussion or talking about it, but the one concern obviously for us all, and we might not want to say it out loud, but there's always the problem that Steve Cole and Steve Petrick are getting old.
it would be nice to know that there are contingencies in place to make sure that all of their knowledge is not lost.
Oh, agreed. But the question then comes into being, and this is I'm just being honest here, which is for those okay to continue the work on expanding SFB, slowly but surely expanding SFB. Will the quality and vision of of that was Steve Cole, will that be able to be transferred to another game designer?
That's almost almost entirely going to be no, but by a matter of degrees.
Right.
Uh, the preeminent example is how Brandon Sanderson finished Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even try to mimic what came before. He just tried to honor the task he was given,
Right.
and that would be probably the best way to handle it.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And to me, I think the critical part of that is going to be for when it comes to any continuation is in my mind the quality of the rule book,
Yeah.
meaning the detail that has always been there, and making sure that the next whatever next product gets put out um, by another designer would actually still adhere to the quality and the standards that are currently set by the current rulebook.
Well, just to show a bit of respect for the way the system is at the moment, um, the two Steves are not the end all of the process. After they get done with it, it goes out to staff review, and then from staff review it goes to Jean for proofreading, and then it comes back and goes through another round of staff review. So it's not like any one person being um, uh, leaving the endeavor is going to completely cripple everything. And even if you have to bring in a new designer, they're probably not going to be able to get away with jettisoning all of the support structure that's
No,
there
no,
now.
no, no. I would never expect them to do a whole redo. You know,
Right.
I would not expect them because of SFB is structured a certain way.
And in the gaming ecosphere right now, I can't think of any major gaming engine that is on a it's on a 30-year plus edition without a significant major update of a version update.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people talk about D&D, but D&D is on fifth edition.
Yep.
Um, SFB is still on captains and has been since the early 90s,
Yep. Agreed. Agreed.
and that's impressive in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. And in my mind, um, the when it comes to the overall product hasn't changed. The whole idea of the captain's edition, when it comes to the rules, was just taking a step back. Okay, say what needs to be fixed, you know, and to be honest, there are some things that need to be fixed. Both, you
Yeah,
know, both in the alpha, because one thing I have to double check this because this was pointed out by a guy named Aaron Staley, and that was that there is an issue when it comes to PFs. Big surprise, they're just talking about FedCom gunboats. Um, and when it comes to damage control for and damage allocation for PFs when it comes to certain systems, and how you're supposed to do damage control, which is not completely um, clear by the rules. So that, as I said, that's a minor one. I'm sure there's larger ones or not larger, but little nitpicky things for the alpha. Now the omega, ooh, all you have to do is
Well,
get Barry on here, and he'll go on like crazy on
oh
that.
yeah, the problem with Omega is that Omega is built on a foundation that the Steves didn't really create themselves, but rescued from someone else who tried to have a go at it and suffered catastrophe and fact of his computer crashing
Uh,
and rebuilt everything by memory.
right. Well, that's to a degree that is the case. But there are, as Barry pointed out, there are some even between the Omega empires, there are some balance issues that are in
Oh yeah.
place that really need to be addressed. When it comes to the empires and their weapons and how the weapons work, and also weapons and systems and how they work. So I think that's something that really needs to be thought of, read through, re. Not, I was about to say reimagined, but that's not what I think. Um, yeah, Chris, we're talking about both. Um, talking and uh, re-looked at. Look at
Revisited.
revisited. Yeah, revisited. That's a good term. Revisited and look at the balance of these systems, and then finding out, okay, where are the mistakes that we let get through the first time? Because yes, the alpha octant stuff has gone through a revision, as you point out, the captain's edition. With Omega,
I think
I don't think they ever really
yeah,
did that.
I think the other thing that really hampers Omega is that the original group that put Pocket Edition and the Designers Edition together was playing the basic groups within the Alpha Octant considerably, and while they were figuring out how they were going to transition to Commander's Edition, so they knew where all the bodies were buried when they transitioned to Captain's Edition. I don't think that player base for Omega exists, and that's why there's not a lot for them to work with because they're not playing it themselves in active groups.
Agreed. Agreed. Um, and what makes obviously updating and fixing things that are issues on the Omega in the Omega rules hard to fix. You want to talk about a tougher one? LMC.
Yep, same reasons.
Yep.
They exist for a very specific reason, but at the same time, there's very little playtest data to fall back on to see if it's working or not.
Right. And seeing when it comes to the balance of those different empires themselves. Now I understand the original goal of the LMC empires. I understand, and Lord knows, it was a task that I do not envy anyone on trying to do, which is back, not backporting, but kind of try to put I don't know, the best way to describe it is trying to basically creating a sequel. You know what the final result's going to be, and creating a prequel for
Prequel, yeah.
yeah, prequel. Not a sequel, a prequel, to what actually happens, and try to fit those empires into what's going to happen. In other words, which is created empires that are unique, different, but are not so powerful that the Andromedans could not defeat them. Because that's one of the things is that in the LMC, all the LMC empires were defeated by the Andromedans. Any empires that survived were just a shell of their former selves. They were just kind of, for the most part, just guerrilla warfare is when it came down to at that point.
Right. And the thing is that since the LMC plays so heavily into Operation Unity, they had to kind of turn around and figure out, okay, how do we scatter local color here, and who's here already, and who the Andromedans already oppressed.
Hmm.
It's it's just a huge thing when you try to pan the galactic sensor to another section of the galaxy, and you have very few touchstones to start with.
Yeah. And Dave, I agree. Dave's mentioning that LMC is almost another game. Crazy shield rules, wonky scanner rules. Yep, I agree. It's definitely a unique enterprise. Obviously, we still got some
Uh,
playtest stuff out there, like the Triangulum Galaxy.
yeah,
You know, we still have
I,
the original Tholian, or the old Tholian Galaxy. You know, there's so much that could be um, added on to it. It's crazy. I know what I would like, but I don't think anyone else would.
and that's the problem. We have a huge group of passionately invested players that are angling to get their precious aspects of the game lifted up, and that causes all kinds of issues, particularly when you have the embarrassment of riches that we have of empires to choose from.
Hmm. Yep, yep. And of course, then we have the real gotcha, the real gotcha in this, which is of course there's only Steve Cole and ADB overall only have so much time in their busy schedule of producing products to work on
Oh yeah.
certain products. And in addition to that, they have to work on products which they think will sell.
That's right. They can't go after and dedicate a lot of time to a passion product that's going to sell the 4 or 5 coffee cups that Steve Cole talked about in a thread not all that long ago on the board. If they only sell a handful of issues or a handful of copies, it's just not going to keep the company afloat.
Right. It's wasting time, and time is money. Even if
Oh
they
yeah.
even if they have if it's purely um, print on demand, they print a copy of it on demand. They still have to do covers and things like that. But even let's say they don't do a cover, even print on demand, it purely the time that they're taking to work on the product is
Oh yeah.
there's a cost involved. If if they're not working towards a product which they can actually sell, a product they can make money on, they're wasting their time. They're wasting money on a product which they won't be able to make their money back on.
Well, they must be doing something right because they managed to keep and they survived the worst of COVID.
Yep, agreed, agreed. Uh, yeah, I understood, Iggy. And David and Iggy, I both agree with you. They're pointing out in the chat room on Twitch.tv that one, um, Iggy said he has no interest in non-alpha stuff. Now here's the problem with the alpha stuff. Period. In my mind, where do you go? As it is, they create for a while there. They were creating the ARM modules, and they filled up the alpha octant with so many ships that filled every little niche that you could possibly think of. There's only one way to go with alpha octant, and that's going to be the second generation X ships. That's the only place to go, and
And
that's going.
apparently there are concerns that run into licensing with tweaking things too far in one direction or another. And most of those uh, pitfalls and landmines are not something the average player of the system even knows about. I've heard mention that Paramount gets really upset when any kind of secondary new type of photon torpedo is talked about. Just as an example, because of based on the way the latest Paramount timeline stuff works. But there's all kinds of different little pieces of detail that go into what will make a product that they can make a profit on. And as much as we love the game engine, as much as we love the setting, uh, Amarillo Design Bureau is in a business situation where they are in business, so they need to stay in business.
Yep.
They need a profitable product.
Agreed. Chris said, like quantum torpedoes. He said, "Oh, just call them Photon 2." Like version 2 of a photon torpedo. Hey, why not Photon V2? Oh, by the way,
I was thinking more along the lines of a Mark II torpedo, but hey, that's just me.
But isn't that also something they already have in the next generation? That's what they actually have. They say, okay, a photon Mark II.
I think they were well past that at that point. But then again, you get into the fan layers of detail that are abstracted out in the SFU, which is one of the things I think makes the SFU work so well. Is that yes, you've got the framework, yes, you have the details, but at the same time, you don't need to know that it's a Mark II Mod 0 torpedo system launching a Mark IV Mod 7 capsule.
Understood. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Iggy, yeah, ADB will outlive coal for the most part. Well, okay, maybe ADB might not outlive coal, but there is a plan for succession, and also I've already talked to Cole about this. I think I mentioned it before. That I'm covered. That if something happens to Steve Cole, since I'm actually, the way my agreement works with ADB themselves, not Steve Cole personally, but ADB as a company, so that if someone else picks up, buys ADB, I'm kind of grandfathered in when it comes to the licensing agreement that I have with ADB itself. So that reminds me, I gotta find out where in the heck did I put that.
Might be interesting to make sure all of your documents are secure. Yes.
Oh, understood. Yeah, I know I have them. That's one thing. Steve Cole and I, when I brought that up, we had a discussion about that part of it, and having written documentation and so forth for the next person in line, that making sure that I was covered. That all of a sudden that let's say, Steve Cole, this dies in like next week or something, whatever. That
Bite your tongue.
Oh, understood. Heaven forbid.
Oh yes, I understand.
But SFU Online will still be running. That was my critical thing. I have less concerns about Starfleet Warlord. The licensing agreement is in place and so forth, and I don't think overall. That's the crazy thing about Starfleet Warlord. Starfleet Warlord is definitely a unique situation. It's not run like Star Trek. It's not even a tactics game. It's more of a campaign kind of a game. And of course, it's in the GMC, the Greater Magellan Cloud. That's the background. It's in the future where basically you have corporations now. Instead of having empires going and exploring the GMC, they have corporations doing that. And each corporation, they get, they have a warp gate, which brings them, to deliver ships. So you don't build ships; they just get delivered from, like, built in the Alpha Octant and then delivered to the GMC through warp gates. You know, so it's interesting, but it's one of those games that, no matter what, I think it definitely can continue on forever. Even if Paramount will look at it and go, yeah, you're using our IP, but we don't care. Because
I think when it comes down to a lot of that, until they think they're losing out on a lot of money, they're just not going to notice.
Yeah, when it comes to Starfleet Warlord, that's such a niche game. I mean, it's really niche game, because this was from back in the days of play by mail. That's when it originally was created, where Bruce Grawl would actually mail out turns, and then you would mail in turns to Bruce Grawl. And then you'd send them checks and so forth. That's how you'd pay for the service and so forth. There are actually, believe it or not, people, there are still play by email. I'm not sure if they do play by mail, but I know they play by email games still out there. It's a very niche community, but it's still there.
It's a very interesting touchstone to one of the ways that social gaming used to work before we had the internet.
Yep. Or even when we had the internet.
Oh yeah, when they transitioned from snail mail to email.
Right, because I'm thinking about the first way to play SFB over the internet was play by email. You'd have your one player and then another player, and then you have a moderator who would actually run the turns for you. And we actually had tournaments where people played by email. It would take quite a few months to get through, but usually, but then you could actually get through the first turn in, if you had quick turnarounds, you could get it done in a couple of days. Because that's the one thing that I always, if you ever play by email, I mean really play it, when it comes to SFB, you realize how much you don't have to fine tune where you're moving. So you both are,
especially if you're doing something like working on plotted movement.
Right, and that's the thing. It's plotted movement. Now, I still remember to this day. I do not remember the person's name. I just remember they annoyed the crap out of me because basically, when they got within like 10 impulses, range 10 of the opponent, they went impulse by impulse, and so it took us forever to get through it. And some of it, it's like, dude, you're both just moving forward. All you have to do is set a break to say, okay, you say, okay, he's going to go this way. I think he's going to go this way. I'm going to go this way. And if he does something I do not expect, that's the whole idea of a break. If he does this, okay, if he goes into this hex, or goes above this hex line, or goes or does something wacky and turns away from me at this point, instead of turning, or he turns towards me, whatever, break at that point.
Right.
No, he wanted to do it every single impulse, and that drove me insane because it violated, in my mind, the spirit of play by email.
It sounds to me like someone who knew how the engine worked and tried to make psychological advantage of the engine.
Nah.
Just like some people will do things like try to psych out their opponents before starting on any kind of physical sports.
No, I don't think so at all. And here's why, Jeff. Because the way here's the way play by email works. And that is, you do your plots, but and you can set conditionals, and you can set breakpoints. Breaks are conditional things that happen that if this condition arises, you you stop at that point in the turn. And if your opponent has already pre-plotted his movement and say I'm going to go here, and does his conditionals, so it's like and if he does this, okay, break at that point. If he's doing that, and his opponent is basically breaking every impulse, it means nothing to him. He has no control. He can't change anything. His orders are already in place. So unless you have a break, whoops, crap, I lost Jeff. But I'll continue anyway.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, you are here. Okay.
I'm here.
According to this, it says that you left the meeting. I'm not sure.
Well, I had a connection goof, but I'm back.
Okay. So it's not going to hear you. But anyway, as long as the break isn't for you, you can't do anything.
Right.
So you can't play the metagaming thing where you're trying to you're trying to play a head game with your opponent. You can't do that and play by email. It doesn't work. You can kind of do it a little bit by the moves you make, But there's
I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It's just annoying when they're basically saying, here's my next impulse worth of instructions, and we're gonna do a hard break at that.
Right, and what I said as the moderator, I was annoyed that the person wanted to do it every single impulse. There was nothing special.
I can see that.
Okay, he said, "Oh yeah, this moving straight ahead." I could have told you that without even you breaking. I can tell you what you were going to do, and especially when you had no choice. He just turned the impulse before, so you have, or sidestepped and he had turned before. There's no choice here. And if you do a head, okay, you do a head, you're gonna die. Because this also is like in the corner of the board. So if he did a head, he was gonna basically run right into the wall.
Yeah.
So like, really? So it was one of those annoying situations. I dealt with it. I don't. The only thing that annoyed me about the situation was mainly because he did a break every single impulse. It took that turn a long time to go.
Yeah.
Because as I said, turn one for a play by email game, usually you plot your first 16 impulses, which you plot the first 16 impulses. You basically you're gonna follow your plan. What your opponent does means nothing to you. The only time
you're just trying to close.
Right. Most times you're trying to close, or you turn and you do a corner dodge or something along those lines, and that's fine. And if they say okay, I want to break on his turn, then fine. He turns, okay, and then okay. Then you might, at that point, you might want to say, well, okay, if he goes straight, then break it at some point, because obviously, versus basically do a corner dodge to the corner directly to the right, and kind of hold close to the wall, because unbeknownst to people, sometimes it's like, guys, you don't have to, on your first turn, come flying at one another. That's not always what you want to do. You don't always want to take control of the center of the map, because for me as an Andromedan, I never want the center of the map. What I want for me, because I have nothing, I'm purely a direct fire ship. I have no seeking weapons. I have nothing to keep you busy while I'm trying to run away.
And you've got nothing to fall back on if you get caught by a wave of plasma or drones or any other kind of seeking weapons either.
Right. So on an attack run, I want to be close to the wall as possible. So then that gives me plenty of running room for the next 2 turns.
Yep.
Especially if I can really plan it out and have it set late in the turn. That's when I want it to be. I want it to be like I want my battle pass to occur sometime between impulse 25 and impulse 32. That's the perfect time. And I think most people who have a multi-turn arming weapon, that's what they would prefer. Because of a multi-turn arming weapons, that means instead of not being able to fire your weapon for what, let's say 48 impulses, you can trim it down to being like 40 or less. If you need to, at least you don't even have to be able to. You have to be able to fire because you need the threat there. That's why you wanted a quick turnaround. You want the threat there, not necessarily do an attack because you don't want to. You don't want to attack early in the turn if you can avoid it. But
it's got to be the payoff has to be really juicy.
Right. Oh, agreed. Yeah, and there's using the threat there so they're not going to want to come in close.
Right. And like if you're fighting a disruptor or some other single turn arming race or empire without any kind of cooldown, the last thing you want to do is to be at close range on them when they turn around and unload impulse 24 or 25 and they turn around and Star Castle until they can blast you again at the start of the next turn.
Yep. Oh yeah, Chris. Disruptors, disruptors have a different way of doing degradation when it comes in SFB. And also
they sandblast the panels a little faster.
Yes, they do. The leak point is in lower 2, which is 2 per panel. So if they have 6 panels and if the front panels get hit by like 18 points of disruptor damage, you get 1 leak point. So it's annoying as hell.
But it's just one of those little balance gotchas that the Omega Octant needs more of. It's just like how the Romulans got the 8 impulse grace period if they lost their plasma R before they managed to launch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way the game interleaves with all of its various options, which is why the Alpha Octant stuff works the way it does, and why a lot of people see that the LMC and to a lesser extent the Omega Octant doesn't work quite so tight. Just to circle back around to an earlier topic.
Right. Oh yeah. And just bring that around again, which is there's the work that needs to be done for that. Some real work. Obviously, the tougher one is going to be LMC because of I don't play LMC.
I must admit ignorance to LMC by myself as it is. I know of it. I know its position in the storyline, but of what's there, I just don't know because the products weren't available when I was the most active, and I haven't gotten that far in my catch up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, understood. Yeah, but I think there's enough there when it comes to Omega that there are certain things that can be done with Omega. To fix things. Now, obviously that means as and people have heard me complain about this for years when it comes to Omega, which is my biggest issue with the Omega rules. And it's not the balance, which obviously is lacking. It needs more balance. Is that the way the rules are written are janky because of when it comes to there's multiple kinds of phasers, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. It can be quite interesting. It's like having different kinds of drones, or different kinds of plasma weapons. So which is interesting. I find that interesting. What bothers me about that is why it feels so janky is because of you got this short little thing that says, okay, this phaser works like a normal alpha octant phaser, except for this particular rules. This is how it works differently.
Right. It does make me wonder if the product as a whole wouldn't be better served to weed out some of the more specialized cases and abstract them out to things that work very similar to alpha octant systems.
Yeah, but I would have preferred, in the way they're writing the rules, I'm thinking about it, the way I'm thinking about it right now, is that you take the whole section, just copy and paste the
Yep.
the phaser rules. Now, after you got the phaser rules, the way they work, then for ones that are still use the same kind of rules when it comes to phaser capacitors and things like that, just have sub rules within the Omega phaser rules. For this, okay, this is the damage, this the specific things about that phaser, but basically have the full rule for the phasers right there in the Omega rules, instead of just having here's a reference to the rule way back in this other book, that you need to also buy, which you kind of have to, which you have to do anyway. I understand that.
Well, now you're dragging me back to the 90s and the Battle Grove Bloodarock days when I wish there was a hyperlinked electronic copy of the entire rule base available for access and research, so that when you ran across a rules reference, you clicked on the heading and it took you to the other rule. But we don't even have anything. We have something kind of like that now with the master rule books and searching within the documents, but we still don't have the something similar to the promise that the early promises of the HTML era gave us.
Oh, understood. And makes me wonder if that could be automated in some form.
It probably could be, but it's also probably something along the lines of, until the gatekeepers of the rights get to see the actual benefit to it, they're just going to see what they have seen all these other times, which is a fear that every time they release something electronically, it's going to get pirated 5 seconds later.
Well, it does get pirated. But, okay. We're going to go down that road for a quick moment. And I do mean quick because it's starting to get a little late.
Yes, it's getting late.
But anyway, and that is, okay. I agree that Steve Cole had issues with the decreasing sales, because people were, it seems the timing, between the sales of, decreased sales of ADB and also the increase of SFU Online, and people kind of basically stealing the SSDs directly from SFU Online, which I'm not sure exactly how they did.
Right.
I don't. Unless somebody went in and cracked the file format for the files, or did screenshots of that was brought up in the client, which is the big pain. I can't like know what they did. Now, I can see someone doing that, but the question is, do the people have the knowledge and the know-how to do it? Don't know.
Well, the reward for actually successfully doing it becomes part of the equation. Um, and far be it on me to try to Monday morning quarterback the way Steve Cole's run the company, but there was a point in time when the bootleg tape scene, the bootleg the bootleg cassette scene, did more to promote mid-grade bands than their own uh, their own PR teams did. And there's a lot of people that if they get a taste for something and they see that it's going to take a couple of $100 worth of materials to get started, they might look for other places until they know they're going to like it. Then they go back in and they fill out their collections. Not saying that happens. I'm just saying that's a motivation.
Oh, understood.
The 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 thing I think a lot of people are worried about is there's so many things that are going to blank as a service, software as a service, um, and they don't like that. They like the idea of, okay, I paid my money, I get to use this forever. That's why Dead Tree stuff is so popular with older war gamers.
Mm-hmm. And some younger ones too. And that
It's getting
also,
there.
and also when it comes to books,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
there are people in the younger generation that are starting to really appreciate the fact that once you publish a book, you can't go back and stealth edit things out of it.
yep, that that's my biggest concern. Oh my lord, my biggest concern is getting an electronic copy of something and then either having it modified after I bought it, or even the electronic version just being modified, you know, and not being the
It's
original text that was was
yeah.
created, you know.
Unfortunately, it's something that happens with a fair bit of regularity on the Kindle store, where authors will go back after the release and they will find a typo here or a typo there, and they will issue a stealth edit correction for all those typos. And for that, okay, the system kind of works.
Right,
But when you have people that have less than or have more purient intent, let's say, go in and start making more judicious edits, then you're left scratching your head going, I remember this story having more to it.
right. Well, to me, it's less of you know, you know, there's more to it. To They changed the story. Oh, people
Yep.
didn't like that that ending. So I'm gonna modify it just a little bit here, and it wasn't the original ending.
I've heard it referred to as the Lucas syndrome.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, I understood.
Hand shot first, okay?
Let's not go there. Um,
Whoops.
yeah,
Sorry.
that's a fine. But here's always the issue, and I find when it comes to piracy and electronic piracy, in my mind, and this I might be completely wrong with this. The people who pirate the ADB stuff are those going to be the people that actually play the games? Really?
It's yeah.
Or they
Generally
just or
speaking,
they just
the people that put forth the effort to pirate something like that are the people that want to play and may not have access to the means to play otherwise.
understood. But in my mind, I think there's some people that would play it. Obviously, the thing is, when it comes to SFP, you need short of doing something really janky. You know, you can't do things without actually hard copy of the game. You
Not
have
really.
There's no counters. You can have
Nope.
SSDs. You can have the game, but there's no counters. Yeah, how are you going to do a board? You can do a board electronically and create counters electronically, but it's not going to be that great. It's not going to be that great of experience in my mind. Um, there, yeah, that has to be online is a much better experience when it comes to that because of it knows the game. And actually, what was it? I was reading on Facebook. Somebody was looking for someone who already did all the work for. I think what was it tabletop something?
Yep. There were a couple of Starfleet Battles modules made for Tabletop Simulator, and I believe the ADB got them ganked because they were unauthorized and they were pirating assets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's just one of those deals. As much as I try to excuse a certain degree of piracy, um, I'm going to be flat out honest. Steve Cole and everybody he employs deserve to eat too, so they deserve to be paid for their efforts.
Right.
I mean, there's no excuse for not paying your fair share, but at the same time, if all you can do is all you can do, I remember when in my salad bowl days when I didn't have a lot of money to spend on games, and so I played what my friends had,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes that's the way games get spread. I
Right.
do remember having access to a photocopier, but not access to money to actually buy games. So I would make very careful choices of what I would photocopy.
Right. Understood.
For the record, I went back and I paid for real copies of all of those games,
Mm-hmm.
just so people know.
Oh, understood. I was fortunate enough that I never had to photocopy games. Obviously, the one thing I did photocopy, which is what everyone had to, which is of course the SSDs.
Yes, but then
Because
again, they're intended to be photocopied. Uh, that or you pull it out of the binder and you stick it in a plastic page protector and use a grease pencil or an overhead marker.
yeah, oh yeah, I've done both.
Yes.
The China markers, China pencils.
Yep.
I remember using that, and of course, and having the plastic colors. Yeah,
We
grease
used to call
pencils.
them SFCs. I'll leave the working out the acronym as an exercise for the listener.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think it's best. That's best at this moment in time. Um, but anyhow, I think we will wrap it up with that thought.
Good as place as any.
Yep, yep. Well, Jeff, you have a good night.
I'll do that. Good night to everybody out
Yeah,
there.
and drive safely out there, man.
I'll do it just because you asked.
Thanks. Okay. That sucks. But anyhow, so obviously it was a rambling podcast tonight, but we stayed on the topic of SFB and FedCom and the Starfleet universe. Obviously, it wasn't any particular topic whatsoever, but I think I hope you enjoyed listening. So with that, I am Paul Franz. I'd bid you a good night.